Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. There is a coherence here, and I want to take advantage of it. While you're here alone listening, and for those listening who are not here, this is not a message that's going to last and last and last. This is a short one that will last and last and last. In the beginning, there was love. And we have started the channel like that before. I want to update you. More than a decade ago, I presented the 4 attributes of love to my partner, who wrote it down, published into a novel. The 4 attributes of love were given to the hero of the novel by an angel. And he listed them. Has love changed since then? And you might say, no, love is the same forever. I'm going to give you some information. You may disagree. It has changed because you've changed. And now these attributes can be updated. Some of them are the same, but even those in the sameness can be updated. Because suddenly you are an energy that is going to feature it, not just listen to it. Over 2,000 years ago, dear ones, the master of love showed it to you, presented it to you, tried his best to bring it to this planet in a way that you all could use it every single day. And everywhere he walked, you could say the flowers grew differently and the people went with him because of love. Way ahead of his time. And yet the earth changed significantly even after he left, because of the message that he had, which was so pure and so divine. Even this day, you recognize it. Love. I want to give you the attributes today. Again. And they're a little different than before. And the first one is this. Love is pure. It is as pure as anything that you can possibly believe. Its existence has no other consciousness mixed in with it. It's pure. It's so pure that humans don't even understand that purity. The closest thing to it, and we've said it before, is in the mother's eyes the first time you see your infant. The first time the infant is lifted up or put upon your chest. And that energy that you have for that little one is so pure for the human being. There's excitement, there's celebration, there's tears and laughter and weeping, and it couldn't be pure. Now I want you to amplify that 10 times. That's the purity of the love of God. And where is that exemplified? That purity is directed to you. It's pure. It comes without any baggage. It's not a love that says, I love you unconditionally, except for one condition. You got to do this, you got to do that, you got to go here, you got to. Oh, and by the way, if you don't, there'll be punishment, of course. That's not the pure love of God. That's humanism put upon things. No. If there is God inside of you, and that is the plan, which most of the religions on this planet profess, if God is inside of you, there is a purity that got you here, that says you are magnificent, born into this place with that purity. Love is pure. That's how you started. And as much as she could, Mom saw that. Dad saw that. There was so much excitement. That's the purity that they could give to you. But inside you knew at some level as you grew up, the Creator who made you gave you something special. The ability to love back in the same way. The purity of love. Probably the most astonishing energy on the planet. That's from the Creator, dear ones. And regardless of who you think you are or what's going on in your life or what you've been told, you were born in that condition. The free choice of humanity took the consciousness where it is and where it went. But when you got here, there was only pure love for the innocence of the child. That's number one. Love is quiet. Quiet and patient. And we've said that before. The purity of real love is quiet. The master of love did not enter a room and say, listen up. I've got love. And you don't. So why don't you gather around and listen to me? That's not what happened. And you know that's not what happened. You know that. If the master of love entered the back door right now, it'd be quiet. We wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. Until he walked down the aisle and opened his mouth. And then there would be a hush. And in that hush you would hear the core truths of the creative source, of the love of God, of how to manipulate physics, of how much you are adored, and how much you are loved. And everyone would recognize love in its purest form. Love is that way. If love entered the room, even disembodied love, if love itself entered the room, here's what it would do. Nothing. Until you saw it and you would say, you're here. What do you have today? And then love would be quiet and say, take my hand. I want to show you something. And in all quietness and beauty, love would take you outside and show you a flower. And love would say, look at the flower, for it's you. All of creation and the complexity of you and the flower is one thing. It represents love. The flower has in common with you what you have with it. Same creator. Same complexity, really. Love would take you over to the tree and say, did you realize you're one with the tree? But there's more. Hug the tree. And love would say, can you feel it? Hug you back. Did you know that the tree knows you're there? Chemically, the tree knows you're there. You're breathing on it. And the tree really likes that because it uses your breath for life. And it then responds by giving back the oxygen. It's one with you. You're one with it. And the example and the metaphor is this, that every single living thing on the planet, and even the things you don't think are alive, are one with you. And in the quietness, you can feel this, and you can know this. And there are humans who have discovered that they can go into the field and sit down and never say a word and listen to the silence of the most beautiful music there is. the oneness with all things, is legendary. And it's the first intuitive thought of some of the spiritual systems that you study. That's what love is. Love is the glue that puts it all together, that shows you the magnificence, that says you don't have to say a word and just be loved. That was number 2. Number 3 goes without saying. Love never puffs itself up. Love is never proud of itself. It's not part of love. It's not part of the consciousness of love. When you go from place to place and you love, you're silent. You're patient. And you understand that there's no amount of verbiage or explanation or puffing up that would be greater than the love that you carry. You can walk around a room and see that there's the Creator in every other human in the room. Regardless of what they're saying to you or whether they're angry with you or happy with you, it doesn't matter. The Creator's inside. They've got it too. The vehicle may be yelling at you. That's their consciousness. That's their issue. But the love of God is beautiful in them, just like it is in you. And then you start understanding that the evolution of the human spirit is the beginning of the realization of the connection of the Creator between humans. And when that starts to happen, humans will be more careful of what they say to one another, because they have something in common, and that's the purity and the beauty and the silence of love. And they'll understand the connection to them and the source. And they'll start understanding the connection to them and the others in the galaxy, perhaps, or even in the university of love. The university of love is the teaching area that you're in right now, that reminds you of what you were taught originally. Love is all. Number 4 is the big one. Filled with the new energy on this planet, love in this energy for the first time is infectious. And that means that when you love somebody with the purity, they can't help it. They're going to catch it. Whether they know it or not, or whether they want it or not, it will be imbued into their potential. Into their potential. And that means that with free choice and a greater potential, they'll be more drawn to the light of love than they ever were before. And then you get right to the metaphor of love being light and awakening to a greater truth. It says when you start to turn on lights in the dark, the darkness goes away. And that other human beings are attracted to the light because it lets them see better. With free choice. Not with a doctrine forced upon them. Not by handing them a book. But because they can see better. You see better. And they start feeling it. And they don't know what they're feeling, but they like it. And they say to you, I don't know what it is. But I'm enjoying life better. I'm not feeling like a victim anymore. There's something going on here in my life, they'll say. I feel there's hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I thought my disease was going to kill me. And now I know better. Because I can control it through love. That's what's going on the planet. If I told you something eye-rolling, would you keep it to yourself? That's a joke. The Pleiadians went through this. Everything you're going through, all of the systems that you're discovering, and through the ages and through the discovery and through the evolvement of their 23 pairs of DNA. It didn't take that many thousands of years before disease was gone. And then they realized something. Disease itself has a vibration. And that vibration is low. And that disease will attach itself to any other low vibration easily. And when their consciousness started to vibrate higher and their DNA started to work better and the sacredness of who they were started to occur to them, when they had peace on their earth and moved into that which we call the graduate ascension status, there was no disease that could ever attach to them. It was blind to them. It was the beginning of realization of not just longer life, but extended life. Their DNA is yours. And they discovered with a higher consciousness that they could live generation after generation with no aging at all. Right now, we give you the invitation to begin it. Right now, we've told you to start talking to that innate in your body and instructing it with love what it's supposed to do. Not what the media tells you is supposed to happen at a certain year of life. That you start turning around the clock. And those around you will see that not only do you have love expressed in your countenance of compassion and how you act and what you do, but in the fact that you're not aging much. And they are. It'll show. And that alone will be attractive to so many who will say, I don't know what you're doing, but give me some. And yet again, you can sit them down and say, look in their eyes, say, did you know you're born magnificent? And it gets better from there if you want. And it gets their attention. And then you start telling them what you feel and how you feel and what you've done and how you're in control of so many things in your life and not a victim of this earth. That's love. That's love. That's where it'll take it. That's where it'll take you. It'll sit upon the evolution of the planet as a catalyst, a glue that begins to show itself in so many ways. Darkness will never be able to exist in that purity. And the ugliest things on this earth will come crawling out of the dark. And you will look at them and you won't be able to see how ugly they are. And you will weep with what they do and what they have done. And they will die in the light. They'll die in the light. And then you'll realize there's a light that you've been showing all along. And they don't have a chance. By choice, they chose the wrong avenue. By choice, they went into a dark consciousness. And by choice, they chose to do the unthinkable things that they've done for years. And their time is up. And you'll see it. You'll see it. And when you do, I want you to remember this channel and this time. When this human in channel gave you this information, it's in the field. It's coming. The cleanup has begun. The cleanup has begun. Let these things not startle any of you. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The dark will resist. And it's not going to win. That's enough for now. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. Today, you went to that place they call the Acropolis Hill. And I want to take a moment to tell you what you really saw. It is profound. Not for the historical reasons, but you see such a big picture of what we have been telling you now for over 2 decades. And I want to review with you a little of what the energies were that perhaps very few see. And then I want to project it onto the future. You're looking at Greek history. And we have said it before. Many would say that this is the place where so much thinking began. Thinking about self, about planet, about esoterics, about all things intellectual, about language and science, art, beauty, sculpture, architecture. And that there was so much advancement here in those areas, so quickly. Indeed, if you go back as far as you can, this is the place where human beings started to examine God or the feeling of Creator in a very intellectual way. You can go to different places of the planet and you can see the beginnings of many kinds of beliefs. But in this particular place, you get to reveal something I'm going to identify. And what I'm going to identify now is spiritual evolution. It is so easy to see here. How it started, where it went, and perhaps where it's going. We've talked about the dispensations of energy that human beings have gone through that have to do with spiritual things. You would think that God would be self-evident. That a human being would be born and there would then be an intuitive sense that said there was a creator. And there is. As far back as you go. From the ancients who lived on the planet far before the Greeks, there was. But here you got to see it in a way that really paints spiritual evolution. It's interesting, but it's understandable that if there is a creator, that the first things that human beings would try to do would to be figure out who it is, what it is, and why it is. And in a very elementary beginning way, in spiritual evolution, you did not have the kind of esoteric thought you do today. Not at all. It had to start very, very simply. And what humans have done, literally since they began to operate with God, is to humanize God. It's understandable. That's all you have as a model, the psyche, the humanness. The greatest philosophers would humanize God. Even today, the greatest organized systems of spirituality continue to humanize God. But you saw it so clearly, did you not? On the Acropolis Hill. There you got the information of the 12 gods. Humans decided that God was a family. That makes sense. Because again, all humanity had was themselves. And so the model creator had to be like them. But they went the second mile in Greece. They made them dysfunctional. Now this is funny now, but they did it because that's who they were. And so it made sense to them that there would be disagreements and all of the things that humanity has with their gods. Now before we go any further, I would like to bring up something. No matter who is describing God, no matter how elementary it is, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in Greece, there is numerology involved that is accurate. Why 12? Why did Plato decide to split the soul into 3 intellectual parts? Even today, you teach the triad in so many ways, and currently in spiritual belief. So the numerology seemed to be accurate. There are many civilizations that had many gods, but none like this, for they intellectualized all of them. In Egypt, there were many gods. Sometimes through Egypt history, there was one god, Pharaoh. Unfortunately for them, he kept dying. And so then he was replaced. That then led to another system, because the Creator is not supposed to die. And so you have 12 immortals. That is a beginning. And you have to see what took place over eons of time, thousands of years. We sat in that which you call the state of Israel, not that long ago. And we told you that those who spoke Hebrew on that land, that you call the Jews, brought this planet a monotheistic God. And that was the next step. So you go from many gods to a monotheistic God. The master of love also spoke Hebrew. What an irony it is that the master was a Jew. And you see the evolution from many gods to one. You go from the dispensation, perhaps, of law to a dispensation of love. You moved into the dispensation of responsibility. And immediately you saw the issue. For 2,000 years, although you had a monotheistic God, it was still elementary. For now you decided to argue over who had it right. And even the major belief systems of the planet are split. One creative source, and wars about how to worship it. Like children in a playground, discovering the seeds of truth and not seeing what the truth really is. The dispensation of responsibility. And then there will be a further evolution, the final evolution, where they see the essence of God and realize that it applies to all humanity, that there is no right or wrong way to worship or to love God, and that culture can be different and appreciated and respected and understood. And there will be many ways, but all of them will be correct. For God is love. That is the step that you are now starting to move into. And in the process, those who are the most radicalized about what they believe is correct or not correct are the ones that will make the most noise. And that is because they start to see the devolution, the crumbling of the differences. Light starts to be greater than dark. And you start to understand that God is not intellectual. God is not like a human. God is love, compassion, so much more than anything that a human being corporeally is. And that revelation is something that you can capture and live. And that God is a caring God, not a judgmental God. Today, when you look at the most modern belief systems on the planet, you still have a humanized God. A God who will punish you and watch you, who doesn't want you to do this or that. And that, my dear ones, will eventually go away. The dehumanization of God is at hand when you start to realize that the creator of the universe is not human, does not think like a human, and never has. This age of responsibility starts to put upon you some things that you should think about. You've always been told how to worship. You've been carried along by others who said, do this and do that. They tell you which direction to face. They remind you of the mythology. They tell you about dark and negative energy and how to avoid it. And all you do is follow the example and go from one place to another, hoping you get it right. Suddenly the light is turned on and you realize that none of those things are accurate. They've been put upon you by human nature. That God is light, and the mythology starts to disappear. The traditions that you would hold clear for centuries start to disappear because you start evolving. And in that evolution, I will tell you what's next for you. This is a group that is going to do ceremony. Ceremony is like congratulations of energy, of self. It's celebration. That's what it is. And in that there is epiphany and realization. And I want to tell you the premise that we have been teaching for so long. It's time to change the entire paradigm of how you work with God. You wait for others to give you instructions of where to worship, how to worship, when to worship, how much, how long. It's part of the structure of your life. But dear ones, it's not a box. The age of responsibility means that at any time you wish, you are your own altar. God is inside you. If somebody says you have several hours of free time on a tour, it doesn't close the door to celebration. It means you can go into the forest with others if you wish, or just across the street to visit a tree. And you can use 3 hours to celebrate all by yourself, because that's the freedom of God. Don't let an activity or a historical site or the history lessons get in the way of how you feel at the moment about God. Don't compartmentalize it. Know that you are one who can worship and celebrate the beauty of God in you no matter where you are. In a closet, in a historic place that means nothing to sacredness at all. You are sacred. You are sacred. I feel a song coming on. And so it is.